Imagine for a moment that life, with all its unpredictable twists and turns, is not a relentless storm, but a series of waves you can learn to ride with grace. What if, instead of being tossed by every surge of frustration or setback, you could cultivate an unbreakable sense of calm? For over 2 millennia, Stoicism, a philosophy born in the ancient halls of Greece and Rome, has shared the secret to building this inner resilience. And now, those same teachings stand ready to guide us through our own challenges. Let's explore 7 life-changing lessons from Stoicism that can help us embrace peace, fortitude, and a more balanced way of living. By journey's end, you'll discover not just fleeting relief, but a blueprint for lasting transformation. Number 1. The release of anger. The hot letter method. Picture the last time anger had you in its grip, your thoughts racing, your heart pounding. The Stoics, masters of managing emotions, offer a compelling approach for releasing this internal chaos. The hot letter method, famously practiced by Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln was overcome with frustration, he'd retreat into solitude and pour his feelings onto paper, crafting letters he never intended to send. This act of writing served as a release, a way to drain the venom from his mind before it could poison his actions. This practice is more than just cathartic. It's a Stoic exercise in self-mastery. The philosophy teaches that while we cannot always change what happens to us, our reactions are fully within our control. Writing down our anger externalizes the emotion, turning it from a nebulous, consuming force into something tangible and powerless once it's destroyed. Burning these hot letters symbolizes the choice to let go, leaving behind nothing but the wisdom gleaned from the experience. The act isn't about denying our feelings, it's about recognizing, understanding, and then releasing them. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, often reflected on the importance of mastering one's mind, for therein lies true strength. As we watch the paper burn, let it be a reminder that our anger too can dissolve into smoke, leaving us with peace and the lessons it taught. Number 2. Self-reflection. Through the mirror. Facing a mirror when anger threatens to overwhelm may feel uncomfortable, but this simple Stoic practice can be profoundly enlightening. Observe your reflection when you're angry and note the tension in your jaw, the furrow in your brow, the fire in your eyes. This physical manifestation is a window into how external triggers distort our inner peace. The Stoics valued self-awareness as a pathway to growth. By witnessing our transformation in the heat of anger, we're reminded of how easily we let outside events hijack our state of mind. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the triviality of many things that stir us, emphasizing that life's events are fleeting and often undeserving of our wrath. Seeing ourselves in this agitated state makes it clear how small irritations can twist our features and inner self, distorting the calm person we strive to be. This exercise is more than a moment of discomfort, it's a revelation. It forces us to confront the question, do we want to be known by this face of anger or by one of patience and understanding? It's a moment to reclaim our power, to choose tranquility over turmoil, and to let our true selves, not our anger, define us. Number 3. Retreat to a place of beauty. Marcus Aurelius often spoke of finding refuge within the mind, a place where the storms of life cannot reach. This inner citadel is accessible at any moment and is an essential Stoic practice. It's not about escaping reality, but anchoring ourselves in a space where peace prevails. To cultivate this practice, envision a place that evokes beauty and calm. It might be a memory of a sun-dappled meadow, the rhythmic crash of waves, or the quiet stillness of a forest. This mental retreat is personal, a sanctuary to visit when life feels overwhelming. By developing this inner haven, we remind ourselves that while we may not control the chaos of the world, we can control where we place our focus. With practice, finding peace within becomes a habit, and we begin to see beauty in our daily lives. A warm cup of tea, the smile of a friend, the light filtering through a window. The Stoics taught that these moments, no matter how small, are treasures. They remind us that serenity is not far away. It is an ever-present choice waiting for us to recognize it. Number 4. Laughing off serious topics. Have you ever tried to have a serious conversation with someone only to have them laugh it off as if it's nothing? You're there trying to address something meaningful, maybe a personal issue or something that's been bothering you, and they respond with an awkward chuckle, brushing it off and moving on. It's like they're using humor as a shield to dodge the truth. At first, it might seem innocent, even charming, but when someone laughs off serious topics, it's often a sign they're hiding something. Here's a personal story. I was once in a relationship where I tried to bring up important issues, real talk, the stuff that matters. I'd say something like, "I've been feeling disconnected lately," and the response would be a laugh followed by, "Oh, you're overthinking things. Relax." That laugh wasn't just a casual reaction. It was a way to dismiss the conversation and avoid dealing with the issue. Over time, I noticed that any attempt to address something serious was met with humor, sarcasm, or a quick joke. I realized that laughter was being used as a way to dodge accountability and avoid facing uncomfortable truths. Here's where it gets controversial. We've all been conditioned to think humor is a positive thing. It lightens the mood, diffuses tension, and makes everyone feel comfortable. But when someone constantly uses laughter to sidestep serious topics, it's a red flag. They're essentially trying to smuggle lies past you, disguised as jokes. Most people will let them get away with it, because no one wants to be the buzzkill who presses too hard on a topic after it's been turned into a joke. People laugh off serious issues because they don't want to deal with the weight of the conversation. It's an escape route, plain and simple. They want to keep things light and breezy so you don't dig deeper. Here's the truth. Real conversations, the ones that matter, aren't always easy or light-hearted. They're supposed to challenge you, make you think, and push you toward honesty. If someone can't handle that, you have to ask yourself what they're really hiding behind those laughs. The deeper message here, when people laugh off serious topics, they're signaling that they're either not ready, or worse, not willing, to have an honest conversation. It's like they're putting up a shiny, jokey facade over something they know they can't explain. Maybe it's fear of being vulnerable, or perhaps they know that if they actually talk about it, they'll expose the truth they've been trying to bury. I've seen this pattern repeatedly. People use humor to deflect and make you feel like you're the one taking things too seriously. But there's nothing wrong with taking things seriously, especially when it comes to important matters. If someone laughs it off, don't be afraid to call them out. A simple question like, "Why is this funny to you?" can expose the underlying discomfort they're trying to hide. The real issue with laughing off serious topics is that it shuts down the conversation before it can even start. It's like putting up a giant no entry sign on the road to real communication. If you don't address it, those critical conversations you need to have about relationships, trust, and accountability never happen. Everything stays on the surface and nothing gets resolved. The deeper takeaway: honesty isn't always fun or light-hearted, and it shouldn't be laughed away. If someone can't take serious things seriously, it's not just about dodging one conversation, it's about avoiding real connection and truth. If they can't face tough topics with you, how much trust can you really put in them? So, the next time someone laughs off a serious conversation, don't let it slide. Ask the hard questions and press on the uncomfortable truth. Laughter may lighten the moment, but it doesn't erase the weight of what's really going on underneath. If they're not willing to drop the act, you've got your answer. They're not being honest with you. Number 5. Defensive without cause. Ever ask someone a simple, harmless question and have them respond as if you've accused them of a crime? It's like, "Hey, did you grab the last slice of pizza?" And suddenly they launch into a long-winded explanation about how they would never do something like that, and how dare you even suggest such a thing. It's an overreaction that seems disproportionate to the question asked. This is what I call getting defensive without cause, a massive red flag that screams, "I'm hiding something." Let me share a story. I was once part of a group project, and one of my teammates started acting strangely defensive whenever I asked for an update on his part of the work. I'd ask, "How's it going with the report?" A pretty normal question, right? But he'd immediately go on the defensive, saying things like, "Why do you always think I'm slacking off? I've been working hard. I don't need to be micromanaged." This was the same guy who spent most of our meetings scrolling through his phone. It wasn't long before we discovered he had barely done any of his share and was trying to cover it up the whole time. Here's the controversial part. People who get overly defensive when there's nothing to worry about are often the ones hiding something. It's the classic "hit dog will holler" phenomenon. From my experience, when someone reacts this way, it's a good time to take a step back and assess the bigger picture. What are they so desperately trying to protect? Because if someone is truly innocent or has nothing to hide, they won't feel the need to turn a casual question into an attack on their character. Honest people are calm and straightforward. Guilty people are on high alert, like they're waiting for the hammer to drop. Here's the deeper message. When people act defensive without a real reason, it's their guilt talking, not their integrity. You need to be bold enough to recognize that their overreaction isn't about you being out of line. It's about them trying to keep you from uncovering the truth. They're like a house with all the doors locked, hoping you never try to open them while you're holding the key. Ignoring these defensive reactions allows lies to thrive. We teach people that they can get away with deception by making us feel guilty for asking. It's not about being rude or intrusive. It's about valuing honesty over comfort. People will twist themselves into knots to avoid being caught in a lie, and defensiveness is just one of their tactics. So the next time someone gets ridiculously defensive over a question that doesn't warrant it, don't back down. Stay curious. Push a little harder, because 9 times out of 10, their reaction is a smokescreen designed to cover up the truth. And you deserve better than to live behind that smoke. Number 6. Overly polished details. Have you ever heard someone tell a story that's so perfectly polished it feels like it was rehearsed for an Oscar-winning performance? Every detail is meticulously placed, the timing is impeccable, and the narrative flows so seamlessly it almost feels too good to be true. Well, guess what? It probably is. I've encountered this scenario more times than I care to admit. There was a guy I knew, let's call him Jake, who could spin stories like no one else. His tales had the kind of cinematic flair you'd expect from a Hollywood script. One time he recounted a supposed business deal he closed, describing every moment as though he were giving us a play-by-play from a James Bond movie. The story was so smooth, it seemed like a scene from a film, complete with the exact second he signed the contract and a firm handshake while gazing over the city skyline. You could almost hear the dramatic soundtrack swelling in the background. The problem is, reality is messy. Life doesn't follow a script. When someone's story sounds like it's been rehearsed for a TED Talk, your lie detector should be going off. It turned out Jake had exaggerated half of his story and fabricated the other half. But here's the controversial part. Most people avoid calling out these overly polished details because, let's face it, we enjoy a good story. We love hearing tales that are neat, engaging, and easy to digest. so we let it slide, even when our gut tells us something's off. This is precisely how liars get away with deception. They rely on our desire for a tidy narrative. We want the story to make sense, to be clean and straightforward. The messiness of the truth is inconvenient. When someone's story is too smooth, it's likely fiction rather than fact. Here's where it gets deeper. When someone polishes the details excessively, they're not just trying to impress you, they're trying to control the narrative. They want you to believe a version of events that benefits them, crafted to perfection, like they're the director, writer and star of their own movie, and you're just the audience, expected to clap along without question. Real life isn't perfect. I learned this the hard way when I started probing deeper into Jake's stories. Whenever I asked for more details, things began to unravel. The crisp edges of his narrative blurred, turning what had once been a flawless tale of success into a patchy, awkward mess. Liars can rehearse, but they struggle with follow-up questions. Real-life details are chaotic, and when someone's story is too smooth, it's a sign they're spinning a fantasy rather than recounting the truth. The deeper message here is that life is complex, messy, and full of imperfection, and that's a good thing. When someone presents you with a story where every detail is perfectly aligned, where nothing goes wrong and everything clicks into place, they're selling you an illusion. If you buy into it, you're doing yourself a disservice. Real connection, trust, and relationships aren't built on fairy tales. They're built on raw honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. So the next time you hear a story that's too polished, don't just sit back and enjoy the show. Ask questions, dig deeper. Real truth is messy, and if someone isn't willing to show you the imperfections, they're not showing you the truth at all. Remember, life doesn't need to be perfect, to be honest, and anyone who pretends otherwise is probably hiding something they don't want you to see. Number 7, vagueness. When pressed for specifics, have you ever had that moment when you ask someone for details, and suddenly they turn into a poet full of ambiguity and grand gestures, but no actual information? You press them for specifics, dates, names, facts, and they respond with a bunch of fluff, circling around the point like they're dancing in a fog. It's one of the most frustrating things, but it's also a massive red flag. If someone can't give you straight answers when pressed, they're probably hiding something. Let me give you an example from my own life. I once had a co-worker who would always talk about these big deals they were closing, but whenever anyone asked for more details, like what companies they were working with or how far along the negotiations were, it became an art form in evasion. They'd say things like, "Oh, you know, we're just in the early stages. Some really exciting conversations are happening. Can't say too much right now, but it's huge." Weeks would pass, and we'd ask again, and it was the same song and dance. Eventually, we found out there was no deal at all. He'd made up half the conversations. He was bluffing, hoping nobody would dig too deep. Here's the controversial part. When someone gets vague when you ask for specifics, it's not just about being secretive, it's about lying. Vagueness is the liar's best friend, because it allows them to escape accountability. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. You think you're getting somewhere, but they keep slipping away with half answers and complicated responses. They're betting on you being too polite or too distracted to push them hard. Here's the thing. People who are being honest don't need to hide behind vagueness. They can give you clear answers because they have nothing to protect. If you ask them for details, they'll give you the information straight up. No dance, no smoke, no mirrors. But a liar thrives in the gray areas. They know that the more vague they can be, the harder it is for you to pin them down. It's classic avoidance behavior, and most people fall for it because we've been trained not to push too hard. We don't want to come off as rude or needy for answers. Let's be real for a second. We've all been vague ourselves at times. Maybe we weren't prepared, felt cornered, or didn't want to admit we didn't know something. But there's a difference. Someone who's honest will own up to that. "I'm not sure right now," or "I need to check on that," is a whole lot different than giving you a bunch of fluff just to seem in control. Here's the problem. When people deliberately use vagueness to avoid being caught, they're undermining the foundation of trust in your relationship, whether personal or professional. They're relying on your good nature to not push too hard, banking on the idea that you'll let it slide because pressing for specifics feels awkward. The deeper message here, integrity and trust, are built on clarity. When someone won't give you straight answers, they're afraid of what the details will reveal. It's like they're building a wall of vagueness to keep you from seeing the truth. If they can't tear down that wall for you, you have to ask yourself why they're building it in the first place. So the next time someone gives you a vague answer when you're pressing for specifics, don't back down. You deserve clarity, and anyone who respects you enough will be willing to give it to you. Vagueness might seem like a small issue, but it's a big sign of deeper problems that can erode trust faster than any lie ever could. Lies don't always come wrapped in obvious deceit. Sometimes it's the little things, the vague answers, the polished stories, the awkward laughs that give it all away. Pay attention to these subtle signs, and you'll see the truth people try to hide in plain sight. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, and don't settle for half-truths. At the end of the day, you deserve honesty, and those who can't provide it are the ones you need to let go of. Stay sharp and stay true.